Welcome back to Photoshop. So today we're going to take a look at a couple different photos and I'm going to show you the muted green effect. So I had a student want to know how to do it and I had never heard of it. So I took a look at it and really it's very, very simple to do. We're going to take a look at the muted green effect. Now, when you're doing this, obviously having green in the background of your image is going to be key. But the process to get the muted part is actually really easy. It's really just a matte color grading effect. And so I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do it, enhance it, change it, do whatever you want. I think the big difference is whether you're using a range selection and hue saturation, or you actually just make a selection of your subject. If you can make a selection of the subject, I think it just makes it an easier process. Well, I'm going to do it in this one without doing a selection, and then I'll do another one where I do a selection in the image. So we're going to start here on this image. Notice we got this intense bright green image here. And all we're going to really do is just make a hue saturation adjustment. Now, when you make a saturation adjustment, you can come in here and adjust all this stuff under master. But in this case, we're going to go into the greens. And when you select one of these things, whether it's greens, yellows, reds, you have the range selector. So notice right now it's isolated to greens. Well, why? Because we selected greens. Well, just because you selected greens doesn't mean that you have to keep this in this location. So we can expand this so we can take these little sliders and slide these out. And what we're doing by doing this is increasing the range of the selection. So in this case, I want to get some yellows as well because green is going to have yellow in it as well. Now, you don't want to go too far because if you start getting into the yellows in the face and the hands, then it's not going to look good. So let's go ahead and just see what we've got here. So we're going to desaturate this because this is mainly what the muted effect is. And then we're darkening it. And you can darken it as much or as little as you want. Truthfully, it's going to be dependent on your image on how much you're going to do that. And so you can see we've almost already got the muted effect right here as we go. Now, right now, it might be affecting a little bit in the face. You can now slide this around until you get it exactly where you want it. Now, here it might not be enough, and here it might be too much. So you've got to kind of slide this around to get it exactly where you want. Now in this image, it's really easy to deal with because we can just take our brush and black down here at 100%, and we can paint into the mask and just say, hey, don't take anything from the face. Reduce this smaller. Don't take anything from the arm. Now this effect, no matter what we do, can't affect those two areas. To do the matte part of it, all you're going to do is, and I'll show you both ways. So we'll do it in curves first. To get the matte effect, you're simply just going to raise this up. That's going to give you that kind of flatter image. And you can darken this down a little bit if you want. So that's the first way with curves. I'll show you how to do it with levels as well. So with levels, you're going to come down here and you're going to drag that in that direction. And then if you want to darken the whole thing, you can take your gamma and darken it this way a little bit. And that's giving you the matte effect. And that's going to be the first version of the muted green effect. The second is we can click here, or we can, I think we can do this one. This is kind of an interesting one. So this is actually sort of a complicated selection to do it with because we need to select our subject out. So what we're going to do is just going to come up here and we're going to get this little button and hit select subject and see how good Photoshop is of selecting our subject out. And look, it did a pretty good job actually of selecting our subject. So right here, I'm going to hold the minus and I'm going to try to give it an area that we don't want selected. Yep. And I'm going to switch this to the lasso because it's going to be a little bit easier. And so I'm just trying to draw around areas that I don't want it to select. And so we've got some areas here we don't want it to select. And it got some of them. And look, normally you go through here and spend time making a really nice selection. However, I'm not going to do that because it takes too much time in a tutorial. but that looks pretty good for right now. Then you need to switch on over to selected mask. We can control or fix that mask here. And if we have some areas that it missed right there, it's not a big deal. We can just go in with white or black and paint into the mask. I'm just going to give this thing a little bit of a feather here, just so the edge isn't totally hard. And we're going to go ahead and hit OK, because I think everybody's going to get this from doing this process. Once again, we're going to grab that hue saturation. We've now made a mask. So the next thing we can do is we can go into the greens and we can slide this way over. And the reason we're sliding this way over is because we've got a lot of yellow and reddish over here in this. So we want to make sure that we get everything. Just move these range selectors over for right now. Okay, we're going to desaturate this area as much as we can, and then we're going to darken it. And whoops, looks like I got the opposite selected. No big deal. Just Command-I, and then we'll flip that way. All right, so now we've got this cool matted effect here. It looks like we've done a little bit too much. So let's go back into that green. And let's bring back a little bit of that color. And that looks pretty good. It's gotten a little contrasty over here. Look, if I was spending the time doing stuff, I might paint into the mask and I would probably open this up and darken this up before I started doing this process to sort of even it out a little bit, if that's what I wanted. Now we're getting some color on our subject here. You can leave your subject however you want, or you can then fix the color. Since we've already got a mask selected, we're going to basically just come in here and you're going to Command or Control click on a mask, and that will reactivate your selection. Now remember, this is selecting our background and we want our subject. So we want to select the inverse, which is Command or Control Shift I, and that's inverse selection. And now once again, we'll just do another hue saturation thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to by master suck a little of the color out of this. So it's a little bit flat, and that looks much better. I could adjust the yellows, the reds, and whatever I want to do. But for this image, I'm just going to go ahead and do that for right now. So that looks pretty good to me. Remember, the next thing we need to do is come in here and do the matte effect. So we're just going to raise this up so we get a little bit of matte. And in this case, I'm going to make another one, and I'm just going to darken this one area over here quite a bit. Remember, I don't want it to get contrasty, so I'm going to bring that up. Just going to zoom out so everybody can see what I'm doing. Grab the brush. I want white, so I'm going to hit X to flip my foreground color. I'm going to make this big brush large, big, and soft, and we're just going to come in here and darken this area a little bit so it blends in with the other area. If I want to blend or open the other area up a little bit, you can just go into that specific area. And just like that, we've got that effect. Now it looks like that this has a little bit too much yellow in it just for me. So I'm going to make a hue saturation. You could do selective color as well. And we're going to go into yellows because that's actually where the color is. So we can change the color of this by sliding this around, and I can suck some just yellow out because that's really the predominant issue. And if you wanted to darken just yellows, you could. So we could just do that there. And once again, I only want that on the background. I don't want that on the foreground. So I'm going to drag this mask, and that's easy. So you're going to hold the Alt Option key and drag up to the new mask location. That will duplicate the mask to that location. So now it's not happening on our subject, it's just happening on the background. And that's basically the process for doing a muted green effect. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave those below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe.